I made some more tests on this, and I thought this thing went down to 1 cycle per second to 500 megacycles. I know that it says MHz, megahertz, on the display, but I figured maybe it would change to HZ, or cycles per second. I'm from the old school, but it didn't. So some of my viewers have told me that this goes down as low as 1 megahertz, but that's it. As a matter of fact, it's an instant cutoff. If you turn the signal generator down to 997, it'll go all zeros. So that's how tight that is. It doesn't gradually drop off. It shuts off anything below 1 megahertz. Now, my test that I made last night off camera was done the same way, except I put the signal generator all the way up. Now, I had mentioned in the beginning, and you saw in the beginning it was all zeros, okay? And I had the signal generator cranked all the way up. I don't know if I showed that or not, but anyways, I was running in the kilocycle range, 700 kc, whatever, okay? And I was not aware that this thing would not read down that low, because the specs say 1 to 500 megahertz. I would take that as 1 cycle per second to 500 megahertz. So that's how I read it, okay? So all those tests below 1 megahertz was wrong. However, you saw some incorrect readings. You were reading 7 and fraction thereof, 7 megahertz, which is on band D, and there it is right there. There's 6, there's 8, there's 7, okay? Now, there is something that you may not be aware of, and I found out and I totally forgot about, is I added a jack here, as I made a video a few years ago, to a very, very small coupling capacitor for the frequency counter, and I did that when I had my attic workshop on a 324 ICO at that time also. Okay? And this is the output, which is now going down to this, which is not turned on at the moment. Okay. As I showed on the video last night, I had, as I recall, 7 megacycles going in, reading 7 megacycles on the frequency counter here, the Lodestar. So I was getting 7 megacycles out of here, okay? I was getting 15 out of here. This is something that's strange. And adding a jack on a signal generator sometimes gives you incorrect readings. So in other words, you got this thing connected to, you're using 2 frequency counters on 1 signal generator by way of coupling here. This frequency counter jack is coming off the high side of the attenuator. In other words, it gets the maximum signal out of the generator regardless of where these switches are, okay, and the level control, okay? Always the same amount of signal coming out of here. On this one, it's adjustable. Now, the reason it was reading zeros yesterday in the beginning of that video is simply because I was putting kilocycles into a frequency counter down here, which is not able to read below 1 megahertz, okay? So that's understandable. But last night, I got correct readings on this. I put 7 megahertz in it. I was getting 7 megahertz out of the lodestar frequency counter, and I was also getting 7 megacycles out of here within a very, very close tolerance. As you can see, it's 7, as close as I can read it, 7 megahertz. Okay, so for some reason, it doesn't always do it. But trying to run 2 frequency counters out of here sometimes doesn't work out. Now, we go to 8. It's hard to get exactly right. It's getting stuffy in here. I'm trying to avoid running the air conditioner because we got ours cranked up there in the house. All right, it's close enough. 799, 8 megahertz. Let's see what we got down below. Maybe out of focus, so I'm trying to get this in. It gets washed out here. 7.99. Okay, so now it's working, but what was happening when I made that video is it was going crazy. I mean, you saw those numbers that I was doing, and I'm doing the same setup here. I was reading like 15 megahertz, and I was putting in 7. Now, let's run it without, well, let's do a couple other tests here first. All right, we're at 10 megahertz now. I can't find my pointer. All right, I can't see that. All right, there's 10 right there. All right, so this is pretty close. It doesn't track perfectly. In the middle of the dial, it seems to be set right, and it's off at the edges. Okay, so this is 10 megahertz right now, and as you notice, my controls are all the way up. I was not doing that before. The right way to really do it is to just have the output going and not have anything here, because I think there's probably interference at times between having a frequency counter here and then having something else here, because I was trying to check very high frequencies on trying to align a radio on the shortwave band. As a matter of fact, it was the Hallicrafters S107, and what was happening was I had the correct frequency here, like 28 megacycles, and I tried putting a frequency counter on here, and it wasn't reading right. As a matter of fact, I'm standing corrected. I had 28 megacycles coming out of here, and I was reading way off on this. So let's see what we've got down here. Again, I have to get very close because it gets washed out when I go back here like this. All right, it's about 10. So let's go to band E, ice strain here. Band E is right there. 30 megacycles. I think we're right. Okay, yeah. 30 megacycles. Okay, we got to go to this jack here. All right, because it's not reading now. So let's go down to this one. Let's take this off. Okay, we just got supposedly 30 megacycles. Let's see what we... Okay, we've got 30 megacycles here. All right. The lodestar have to change the jack to the UHF. Okay, here we go. 61 megacycles. That's the weird pattern I had. That's what I was trying to explain. I'm reading 61. Okay? Got it going in here. You can plainly see it's 61.9 7497 megahertz. That's not what I got. I got 30 megahertz. So that is this strange phenomenon that's been happening. Let's take a look down here. All right, we're getting 30 down here. Now watch what I do. That's where the error has been happening. I stand corrected. It was this counter that was reading off when anything else is connected here. Okay? So now, if I disconnect this, like I'm going to do, take my word for it, I'm going to take it out now. It should drop down to 30 megacycles. There it goes. There's the connector. Alright. I'm going to put it back in. This is still putting out 30 megahertz. Alright. Let's put it in. Jumps up to 61. Alright. Sorry for panning back and forth here. I can't do split screen, so we're going to have to do the best I can. Alright, now, let me take that off again. Alright, we're down to 30. Just remember 30.8765. Go down here, put it down here, where it's the regular output. There it is. It takes a fraction of a second to change over. So, if we use one jack, in other words, what the point I'm trying to make is, unless your signal generator comes out with a factory-made output for a frequency counter, adding one can really screw you up. And I only found this out several months ago, and I totally forgot about it. So this is a weird phenomenon, and I think they're interacting, but it doesn't seem to bother it at the lower frequencies. Like 7 megacycles, it was okay, but it did give a screwy reading on that video. So I wanted to make this video to prove that this thing here is putting out the correct frequency. I haven't changed it. It's just that when you try to have a frequency counter in here where it's supposed to be, and I think there's only, there's a very small coupling capacitor here. I can't remember what it is now. And this is the regular output. I'll have to get you off a macro here so you can see both. I don't know if you can see that, but I can see 30.8 megacycles. Go up here, put it back here. There it is. Okay. Now, we're going to bring up this frequency counter, which is right now all zeros. Connect it back up. I'm ready to plug in. It's plugged in. Back to 61. Okay, so that is a big contributor. As a matter of fact, the whole problem with this unit is adding a B and C connector for a frequency counter on a signal generator that originally was not designed for that. So on the higher frequencies, like in this case 30 megahertz, it screws up the reading. So you can't use anything here, even though this is reading okay now. Like I say, and I'll repeat one last time, I had gotten erroneous readings on the megahertz ranges yesterday's video. But you can see it's correct here. Now let's reverse these. All right. Now we're getting our correct 30 megahertz. Okay, you can see we got the wire going right here. Normally it goes here because this is the jack I added. It's correct. let's see if this one's correct. Yes, it is. I think we're on macro. In conclusion, both frequency counters are reading okay. All right? Both of them. If I reverse the cabling. But needless to say, you got to use this as your output because this is where your attenuators are. This is all before the attenuator. So, put that back here. I'm going to have to get out of here. I can hardly breathe. I feel like I'm in a steam bath. All right, we're back up to 61 megacycles. I have to put that on. I feel like I'm going to pass out here, getting nauseating. I get sick to my stomach with the high heat and humidity. All right, so, two things. One, I was wrong in that this reads from 1 megahertz to 500 megahertz, not from 1 cycle per second to 500 megahertz. Okay, so that is my mistake, only because it should be written out clearly. Even though the screen says MHZ on it, okay, and it didn't drop down to HZ for hertz, okay, so that's my mistake. All right. I think the instructions the specification should have been a little more clear. Okay, but we do know right now that you can't have the frequency counter on. So, better put this on macro. What I have to do is, if I'm aligning a radio on the high bands, make sure that the dial pointer, like on this radio here, like if I want to adjust it for 30 megahertz, let's say, all right, and I output the signal generator to 30 megahertz, I better make damn sure that the frequency counter is unplugged. What you do, let's pull this out, and she drops. What I do, in this case, set your frequency counter to, let's say, 30 megahertz, okay? 2930, okay? Unplug the frequency counter. You know you got the 30 megahertz coming out, and connect up your cable that's going to go to the antenna to loose coupling to the radio. As you can see, we're 29.9141. So, I think we all learned something today. You don't leave your frequency counter on the external jack that you added to your signal generator, especially on the higher frequencies. It might be okay on the lower frequencies like 7, 10, 15 megahertz, thereabouts. But every signal generator is going to be different. I think it depends on how you couple it. I could probably put a smaller coupling cap in here. I don't recall what it was. Was it 001 or what it is? I think it is. I wasn't able to get a good reading by putting like a 10 picofarad in there. I think it didn't seem to work right. So that's a point that maybe some of you might want to run tests on your signal generators, especially the higher frequency. As I recall, I didn't think it bothered the IF 455 and kilocycles and down there. I think mainly your upper band, above 20 megahertz, thereabouts. That's just some information I want to pass along that I'm living and learning, just like a lot of you out there. Thanks for watching. Oh, by the way, you may be interested to know that, make sure I'm on macro, I mean not on macro, that the seller in California has refunded my $31.91, that counts the tax, for that signal generator. So I thought that was very nice of them to do that. It's in my PayPal account. I just checked it. So that's good news. All right, folks. I hope this was helpful to you. I want to thank you for watching. And, well, maybe this thing isn't so bad after all, but you do have to put in a strong signal. I also, my function generator puts out, I don't know, a volt or something like that. The bottom one goes up to 1 megahertz. The top one goes up to 2. And I got nothing on this here until I hit the 1 megahertz frequency mark, and then instantly it showed up. So it's completely dead below 1 megahertz. So it can't be used on a signal generator if you want to set your 455. You're still going to have to plug in a generator, a frequency counter rather, and go that way.